Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the two-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 93. And we're doing a quick little intro. We've got Shaun Muir, who's the boss for the World Superbike BMW team coming up. Went down and did an interview and really enjoyed it. So we've got that coming up. But we thought we'd do a quick little intro. We haven't done
This is weird.
feed.
This is weird. It's more of a tidy up situation, a catch up more than anything. Because on the podcast that was just released on the Keith Farmer one, we obviously brought the news to Keith that we got violated. I'm talking about the break-in, Chrissy, obviously. So I'm still overwhelmed with all the support that we got from that. It has been absolutely mind-blowing, hasn't it?
Absolutely, aye. And for those that don't know, I was keeping the trailer in what was supposed to be a secure storage unit, but it wasn't so secure, and went to get it.
Well done, Sherlock.
to do a podcast, and the back doors were all caved in, and the place. I got a bit of a shock when I first came in because everything was all over the place and it looked wrecked. But
you had little Betsy in, didn't you? Your little niece in as well. So
I kept her in the. I didn't want. She doesn't know that we got broken into.
Oh no!
But it was funny because we drove up and I was all cheery and making jokes and we're singing and having a laugh. And then I got back in the van and I was just dead silent the whole way. And she was asking, "Are you okay?" And that, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Deep down, I was like, "Bass." But yeah, the generosity on social media was unbelievable. And after I posted pictures, showing the break-in, and a guy, Chris from Grid Motorsport Media, very kindly set up a GoFundMe page to recoup the costs of the break-in and the damage and replace the stolen items, and which was extremely generous of him. And for all the people that joined in and chipped in, £10, £20, £50, whatever it was,
makes a huge difference. It really does.
And it was extremely generous of everyone that donated, and we're very grateful. So thank you. And also Hayden Gibson,
HG Concepts there, yeah.
Who go on, you can, because
I was about to say he does my lids and Richard Cooper's and everyone, and he just got in touch and said, "Look, lads, I'm gonna put a raffle together, and whoever buy a raffle ticket, and they're going to get a custom paint job by HG Concepts." And the support was fantastic yet again, and I'm still overwhelmed. It really is, and it does keep us on the road. It keeps us going. It keeps this podcast rolling. Never mind the quality. I know it's going downhill, these podcasts, rapidly, but no, it's great that we are still getting so much support. So Hayden, you'll be loving this, man. He'll be at home going, "Get in, I'm the man." You're the man. So I can't thank you enough, mate.
And also, I would just like to say a big shout out to a fellow racer, sidecar racer, Kirkup, who very kindly fixed re-welded the lock back on the studio.
We'll forgive him for his sins, because we've been trying to get him on this show so many times. Like, get a couple of pints down his neck. He's like, "Where are go on the show?" And you ring him on the day, and he's like, "Nah, I'm all right. But what a lad!
I need a welding job. Who do I know that races sidecars near me?"
Was that after the Ben and Birchall episode that you thought the all could turn a hand? But he's selling his outfit,
Yes, you mentioned that,
which is a shame. He's obviously got his reasons, but no,
he was all teed up to do make his debut at the TT, wasn't he?
Now,
and he was taking it really seriously, going over all the time, learning the track, and it must be a big blow after all. But you know what I mean, putting all that work in.
Ton of weight as well. I mean, it wasn't massive by any stretch of the imagination, but for like a bike racer, he was rather large, and he lost all that weight and everything. And no, on a personal point, I hope no one buys it. So he's stuck with it, and then the TT will come back around and he'll go, "I tell you what, actually, let's get a passenger and let's get going with it." But no, like you say, Kirkup stepped up to the mound, and he got the gear out, even though he's got a busy schedule himself, being self-employed painter and body repair shop. He took the time and got the trailer, fixed. They are fixed.
Another little thank you that I would like to put out there is after we had Billy Bolt on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Who's Billy Bolt?
He very kind. a sponsor of Billy's, Ed from Kex, very kindly sent us some underwear and socks. And although we're not sponsored by Kex, we don't have any sort of financial incentive to promote them. It was just very kind of them to send us some nice underwear, and I have actually used it since, and I highly recommend.
Mate, I am wearing a pair right now. Did you order the small size?
I didn't. I think you just presumed we were both small.
Mate, I am not a small. That is suffocating, mate. I'm telling you. I'm scared to pull my pants down. It'll look at me and just go, "What have I done to upset you?" And God, it's dying in there. But no, Billy actually gave me a pair of mediums. Seriously comfy, mate. Seriously comfy. But it's just around the junk area. It's a bit snug. Also on the small.
For anybody that. Anyone that is interested, Kex have also put a discount code for us. So for any of our listeners, you get, if you put motorbike pod in, you get 15% off, which I took advantage of myself, and I got some Tiger King. Can you remember the beginning of lockdown?
Oh my God! Is he alive still?
Carol Baskin. Yeah, he's in prison. Joe Exotic is. There was a rumor that Trump was going to pardon him on his last day in office, and the Joe Exotic had a stretch limousine, like a Hummer limousine, waiting for him outside the prison, and he never got pardoned. So I think he's got another 20 years or something in.
Oh my God! There you go.
Side note. Anyway, we'll get on with the podcast. Have you got anything else to cover before?
No, I just think it was like. We talked about it in this podcast, obviously, but it was really, really good that Shaun took the time just to fit us in. A very busy man, very busy schedule, and can't wait to re-listen to this one, Chrissy. So, no, it's all good, man. So all good in the hood.
Without further ado, over to Shaun Muir, who's the boss of the BMW World Superbike team.
Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 93. And we're joined on a beautiful, is it spring now? Spring morning, and we're in a lovely part of the country. And welcome to the podcast, Shaun Muir. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming over here. Now I understand how you do it. When you said you're going to do it in a trailer, I'm thinking, I need to clear a trailer out there. But you've got your own, so I like it. It's self-confined. But yeah, all good here. Thanks.
And thank you very much for taking the time. You're obviously a very busy man, and we had the extreme honour of seeing you wheel out your helicopter, something I never expected to see on a Sunday morning. But no, like I say, thank you so much for taking the time to get on the show, and looking forward to this.
I think things are properly starting to look upwards. We've had quite a hard
Literally
winter
for him in a helicopter. So.
Quite a hard winter, with the lockdown and stuff. But the last couple of days, the weather's real starting to freshen up, and the data in sight of things opening up, and you can just feel it. We were saying just in the air coming here, everyone's feeling a bit more optimistic. And
well, the weather, like you say, if you look back to last year, the first lockdown, the weather was incredible, and it probably kept people kind of going a little bit. Really, it was all those home jobs got done. Everyone was kind of making use of the lockdown time, weren't they? But this second and third one have been difficult through the winter. But you're right. The dates are looming now. Things are starting to open up. The COVID, the vaccines are taking place regularly. So it's good. We need it. The country needs it. And the world needs it.
And have you been keeping busy over the winter? Have you managed to still work and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, on the construction business, that's been really hit hard. Our focus on that side is aviation. So we're pretty we're prominent at the leading airports in the UK. So Heathrow, Manchester, Birmingham, all of that work's been deferred. It was deferred for a year on the first lockdown. It's now been deferred another year. So that's hurting us at the moment. On the racing side, obviously, it's just flat out. We've got a new bike coming, so there's heaps amount of work going on there, and it's a real hotbed of activity down there at the moment, the workshops.
And we're jumping. Are we still staying on the BMWs for this season? Is that the plan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm locked into that for a long-term deal now, so it's our future.
Brilliant. Because we were sitting down, we're travelling down the road, and we're looking at your past, and there hasn't been a manufacturer you haven't really touched, isn't it?
Other than Kawasaki, I think is
our main sponsor here. Then.
Yeah, look, we've with the exception to Aprilia, which wasn't really that strong a relationship. Everyone else has been quite positive. You know, we had a lot of years with Honda as a private team and kind of cut our teeth in BSB at that, and then got picked up with Yamaha, stayed there with them for 5 years and won 2 championships. So, you know, I felt like we did a job for them. And Worlds, we were already committed to Worlds, and there was a real, you know, story behind all of that. But at the 11th hour, it got curtailed, and we ended up having to take a different route. But you know, we got what we wanted in the end, and we're pretty fixed. You know,
brilliant. Yeah, and we've on this. I don't know if you've seen many of this like episodes of this show, but we'll kind of chat like through the careers and all that type of stuff. And on the way down here, we're having a quick look through the Wikipedia page and various things.
No escaping the internet, Shaun.
As you do.
I don't know much about your racing career before, like owning a team. I don't know much about your racing yourself. Is that something you did from a young age? And
well, there's not a lot to write about, so there can't have been much on Wikipedia. No, well, from motocross, kind of, you know, 11, 12, his age, 11, 12-year-old, we, you know, I kind of continued that. Started road racing really late, just through the fact that you ride on the roads like an idiot, and just thought it was a better life than this. And I had a couple, probably had 3 or 4, but I mean, he went really quick. Got out of nationals into club racing at the championship racing. I think I won a Stars of Tomorrow Championship, which was like one below everything. Then did British. Then it was Super Cup and British Super Championship. You know, regularly in the top 6, top 8, but that was kind of as good as he got. Then I had a bad leg injury. I actually rode for Colchester Kawasaki, the original owners of that. They were my final sponsors, and we got the then ex-Reve Kawasaki, Dave Jeffries and John Reynolds' Kawasaki's off Ben Atkins. We did a year in BSB. Midway through the year, I had a bad motocross accident which shattered my left leg, and I never came back from it really, because it was super infected, nearly got amputated, and that put an end to it. So I quickly again got back into business. You get married, you have kids, and things move on, and then all of a sudden you realise, I'm not coming back from that, you know. And took steps into running a team for my sins.
And was it?
Sorry for interrupting you. There's a bloke from Wikipedia now trying to keep up with everything you just said there, going, bloody hell, slow down, Shaun, Jesus.
It was beginning of the 2000 era, wasn't it, when you first started in? Well, I remember the early days in BSB, but you did a few years before BSB, didn't you? As a team?
Yeah, cast my mind back now. I think I did a deal with Steve Manton, who's been a great sponsor was a great sponsor in the paddock for many years. A lot of riders have ridden for Steve Manton. We took some sponsorship with him in 1999. We had Callum Ramsey and Mark Horner, people like that. And then I did some work with Rob Mack. I kind of stepped away from it. My wife kind of got involved a little bit with the corporate hospitality, so we helped Rob out for a year. I was kind of didn't know what to do. And then myself and Colin Appleyard set up in Superbike with Kieran Murphy, and Steve Plater joined us that year, and that was the start of it, really.
Mm-hmm. And then from then, the earliest times I can sort of remember is the Hydrax Honda days.
That was it, yeah.
And so was that your first BSB team?
It will have been 2005, yes. Yeah, so it was with Kieran.
Back to the Wikipedia here.
Who was your first Superbike lineup?
Kieran Murphy. Not Kieran Murphy. Kieran Clark. Sorry, Kieran Clark.
Is that the lad that's doing stunt riding now?
That's yeah.
He's in like proper top movies.
Yeah,
isn't he?
he's carved himself a real career, and I'm pleased for him. Yeah, so Kieran and Steve joined us later on in that year, and we got a podium at the last ever race at Brands, and kind of things start going, gather momentum, don't they? Sponsors get happy. Perfect time for a podium. You know, the wallet comes out, checkbook comes out, doesn't it? So. And then the following year we had Gary Mason and Glenn Richards.
Mm-hmm. And obviously I remember Guy Martin riding for you. And and was that your first taste of the road racing side of things with Guy?
Yeah, he was really. I mean, he's a strange one, isn't he? I mean, I don't really keep in touch with him. I'll get a random text out of completely nowhere, and you know, I think I've got about 7 numbers on my phone for him, so I don't know which one's which, but he just changes them that regularly. But yeah, we ended up with. You know, we wanted to get into the roads. I've always been a lover of the roads. Never raced myself on them, but I kind of always really enjoyed the atmosphere and the whole ambience around it all. So we got Guy on board. Yeah, it was first year with him, and I brought him into Superbikes as well. So it was him and James.
So what was your first experience of road racing? You know, you don't just suddenly develop a love of it watching the telly. Did you?
Well, watching. Yeah, going to many races really. I mean, I would make a trip on my road bike with all the boys then. You know, we'd go to the Ball d'Or, we'd go to the Isle of Man, we'd go to the Northwest and the Ulster and things like that. And I'm thinking, I'm on the wrong side of the fence here. So that's when I got involved, but then still had the bug for it, you know. So I met Guy in Macau. We had then Martin Finnegan with us, and James McBride.
See, these are the names I'm missing of Wikipedia. Which is great to hear.
So we had Martin. We sadly lost Martin years later, but I mean, in the pit, we're in the same pit boxes now, and I'm looking across thinking, Jesus Christ! And a Guy is doing the then aim bike. He's changing his own clutch. He's doing this, that, and the other. And I just said, look, do you fancy having to go at Rhodes next year? And he went, yeah, I need to get out of this. So that's how it started with Guy, and that was before all the fame that was wrapped around him, and he was just good old Guy, and he still is good old, but I mean, he's just in a different world now, isn't he? But it must
be difficult being in the spotlight so much, and like obviously everybody, like say if he turns up at the TT, everybody wants a bit of him, and I think because he's got Asperger's as well, I think, hasn't he? So it probably is a bit overwhelming for him at times.
I would imagine so. We had him for 3 years, and through each of those years, we saw a transition, and we really shouldn't have done the last year, really, because 1 and 2 were brilliant with us, and it was a good experience. We had great results, we had a brace of seconds everywhere, but never quite won one, and he was the biggest competitor to John McGuinness, and we were a little private Honda team. So he was good to work with. He was raw as well, and he was, we were kind of coming up together. But we'd had some good success already on the short circuit.
So why not the third year then? You were very, like that second year. You feel like hindsight, if it was there, you would have stopped on the second. But why the third? Why?
I mean, it started doing a lot of the TV stuff. Things started to develop then. He was starting to almost be untouchable, really, in the fact that everyone wanted a piece of Guy. I remember the story. I think we had a contract, but it was never signed. It was always, there you go, that's your deal, Guy. Right, yeah, boy, okay, boy, I'll do, boy, and he just made sure he got paid. That's a very
good impression, by the way.
He just make sure he got paid and everything was sorted out. And then the final year, he went, hey, boy, I'm fucked up here. I said, I've signed for Rob Mack. I said, will you sign for me as well? What do I do here, Shaun? I said...
Did he honestly do this?
Oh, yeah. So I rang Rob. Hey, Rob, how you doing? But I said, yeah, sounds Shaun. I said, you've got my rider. And he said, yeah, Pierce. So I said, well, he still has a contract with me. He went, oh, can't believe I knew this had happened. As soon as I spoke to him, he was like, yeah, just get on with it, Rob. So we were both in this situation. At that point, I should have said, crack on, go for it. But we didn't. To be honest with you, there was contracts with sponsors and things like that involved. So there was a lot of things intertwined. But it was, it was a few fraught days. Eventually, he just runs for cover at that point. He just, ring me up, let me know what you get sorted out. So I rang you up, said, you're back on with me. You went, that'll do, boy.
That was simple.
That was it.
Was it because it's very famous the fact he likes to do a lot of the work himself and stuff. But I presume the team the professional team that you had, that must have been his first time in a team where there was proper mechanics and proper crew, the control was taken away a little bit. Was it quite difficult, sort of giving him the reins on what he wanted to do? But
in year 1, it was okay. Because he walked into that environment, and Mick Shanley that ran the team, he's absolutely brilliant what he was doing, and he kept it on the straight and narrow. So year 1, we all enjoyed the successes as well. First years, podiums all over. Second year, we thought we started to see the cracks a little bit, really. Oh, let me take a bike away now, I can do this. And I wanted, we were like, no, Gary, we don't do it that way. It's got to be done here. So he kind of relented. But we had Danny Horn with us, so that was a big... he was a good conduit, because he kind of mellowed Guy a little bit. And he would be like, look, Guy, you can't do this, not in this team, right? And then the third year, we did let him go and do that. So he kind of worked a lot of it from home. Carl Buckle did a lot of work for us at that year with Danny. So he was a kind of real nice little balance, but he was still, we kind of, you're too many. We should have let Rob take.
And on the way down here, we're past the good old Transporter Bridge for the Alvina Same Pet fans out there. And obviously right next to Teesside Autodrome. And the Hydrex, you used to test there with the Hydrex Honda team, didn't you?
Occasionally, yeah. We didn't do a lot there. It's just quite tight, as you well know.
First, second.
Imagine a superbike going down that back straight.
It was literally first, second.
Because I think
Hydrex over the bank of South.
Rear sprocket that side.
Paul Bird took the team there at the beginning of this year, and they just rode on wet. Yeah. And they took, I think Frank took his car, and they had a bit of a play around. But there's
I've just come up with a really random fact. Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you the most northern team bar the Scottish lot? Being this far up north, because really, we talk about quite regularly. As far as infrastructure in motorsport, there's nothing up here. Really, is it?
You're right. I mean, look, it's the best kept secret what we've got here. You know, if you walked into our workshop, it's like, oh, I didn't realise, and you wouldn't even know it's there anyway.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
But no, it's just an interesting fact because it's like the support's really down the country, so it's nice to have a north lad.
Well, the lad that used to do my engines years ago and was a very, very good at Nicky Kennedy, he's at Scarborough. Is that more north than us? No, it's it's a bit further south. But he's I mean, there was a Jimmy Norman up at Newcastle where he used to do a lot of engines in his day. I don't know where he is now, but yeah, I mean, I think as teams go, we're probably the most
northern there. So there we go.
And so after the Hydrex Honda days, was it then straight into the Swan Yamaha team? Was there?
Yeah, we had
was that an official Yamaha project?
Yeah, we ended up with, we had some good years with Honda because we got the old. So two models removed Honda, 3 models removed Honda. Then we got the new one, and we kind of ran it in parallel to the then HM plant. And if I'm honest with you, we did a better job, I think, than them. We were allowed a bit more freedom. We had the Pectel electronics. We had different swing arms that we could run, and we got the bike running really well. So we kind of leapt up a couple of levels. And then the one year where I think it was Camier 2009 with Leon Camier and James Ellison with the Yamaha, we were winning regularly, but more so we were beating the HM plant team every week almost. So at that point it was a bit of a crossroads, and the Yamaha thing split with Darrell, and then they came to us, so we got the deal. Yeah.
Now, so just before the big recession in 2008, on this podcast we've had loads of riders around that sort of era, and it's dead interesting talking about like how things have changed in the British Championship since then. And one of the major factors is before the Pirelli came in as a single make tyre, there was the tyre wars of like Michelin, Dunlop, all that type of stuff. When we had Michael Rutter on, he was saying that one year his tyre bill, I think it was Michelin, was £300,000 for a tyre bill.
Really? And you're backing that up?
No, absolutely, yeah.
Before, and everyone, all the top lads had 2 bikes, and it's obviously Stuart Higgs brought a lot of rules in to sort of, we'll try and reduce the costs and make it more affordable. In terms of budgeting around that, so just before those rules came in, were the budgets massive for BSB?
Not massive. I mean, tyre-wise, I mean, that was a great rule to bring in, by the way, because it was. I mean, I go back to that first podium we ever had in 05. We wouldn't have won or got that podium. People forget there was a massive race there, and Phil Plater came up from Dunlop and said, right, I've got your rear tyre here for the second race. So-and-so doesn't want to use it, but it's a special. And boy, was it a special. We went second half a lap quicker in the race. It was like that. And it was so super selective. The top teams then at that point, you had 3 or 4 top tier teams, and we were just below that. We get given a tyre, and all of a sudden it turns you on and you get a podium, and that was crazy. Was that not
unbelievably annoying when you were putting so much effort and knowing that the best you could ever do was behind those tyres, purely on the tyres?
And that tyre bill that Michael was talking about there was the fact that there was no other Michelin team in the paddock on the front running team. So you looked at they had a car with two or 3 Michelin guys in it alone, just looking after your tyres on that team. So that's where that came from.
Bloody hell.
So yeah, it was frustrating, and obviously most of the rest were on Dunlop, and then you got Rob, who broke the mould and brought the Pirellis in at the 11th hour. And then eventually that changed it all.
And of course the electronics rules before then, when when the last year JC won, I think with Cam. That was when it was open electronics, and then they brought in the rules where it was.
We had the last year with open electronics in 11. So we took the bikes from Melandri and Eugene Laverty in World Superbike when they pulled the plug on the World Superbike team, and we bought those bikes into the UK with full Morelli, and it was just another level. And then Stuart changed the rules to the single motet the year after in 12. And that was a big change.
So obviously, bar your own team being affected by that rule directly, do you think it's a better step for the championship now, the BSB?
Yeah, clearly it is. I mean, you can, with the right prepared bike, you could book Brooksy like he did really with the tag Yamaha on a bike at the very last minute and put it on the podium on a bike that generally most competent teams can build and put a very good rider on it. You put it on the podium. You wouldn't do that in any other championship. You couldn't go and put Roman Ramos on Johnny Ray's Kawasaki and expect him to put on the podium. It just wouldn't happen.
No.
So that's just, so the rulings, every rule that's been done in BSB has been the right move. People kick and scream and shout about it. They don't like it at the time. Me included, by the way.
I was interested
in the tyre rule I was all for, but not the electronics, just because we'd cost a fortune out for these bikes, although we were a factory Yamaha team, call it factory, there isn't such a thing in my mind, but you have that arrangement. It just gives you access to stuff you wouldn't normally get. You still got to write a check out for it. So when we brought those bikes in, the electronics had 3 years of two of the best world superbike riders at the time and a test team behind it, nurturing that Morelli electronic system, which is so wide and varied. Mm-hmm. And we brought it over here, and it was corner to corner traction. It was just another level. So it was, when Tommy won it and narrowly won it, as we know,
that was an outstanding race. I'm so glad you brought that up.
That's got to be the best finish for a BSB championship of all time. And talk us through that last lap in the garage
from your point of view.
Well, I talk about the Saturday night. We were all just kind of edging our hands. We thought it's over because really Michael outrode Tommy in the showdown that year, as he did, as did Noriyuki almost in the second year. But yeah, it was strange because I absolutely so desperate to lose Michael the following year to Honda. But I think obviously Tommy winning it. But in the showdown, all leading up, Michael had outridden it. So there was literally Hopper, Shaky, Michael, and Tommy. And that going into that event there, we can see what happened. I mean, we're all spewing because Michael went and won the first race on Saturday, I think. But I mean, he couldn't do anything else. He was out in front by a mile. It was conditions were changeable. But at that point, we weren't really. We didn't expect to win it. And then obviously, morning, whatever happened in the first race, Hopper had an incident, lost a load of points, drew it all level again, went to the grid, and we weren't fast. And it was thinking, it's 50-50 now. It's anyone's. Like you hear Jack and James saying it's
blokes racing.
Yeah, blokes racing.
Honestly, that was a phenomenal. So it's like, I'm just curious, what were your last words to Tommy? You're on the grid. You've got your chance, son. We're a team. What was your last word?
Think of the bonus, Tommy.
Yeah.
Like that with a wad.
It's funny, really.
Look at that.
I don't really have a lot of chat with the riders on the grid because there's not a lot I can say more than they're already under pressure anyway. The last thing is my ugly nose in the screen going, do it, the crew chiefs and everyone around them do that. And I had a great manager that year in Gary Eckerold. He ran a real type ship and it was fantastic. So, going on the grid, we weren't going on the grid. Everyone's asses were nipping. It was serious, like, what's going to come out for me? You're eyeballing everyone. There was no real. I don't think there was a tyre issue on the grid, so we knew what compounds we were going with, and we're all eyeing Hopper's setup up. And I'm thinking, that's at least one thing's even here. They're as nervous as us. So when we all went, I remember walking next to Paul Denning, who made an appearance. I think he was still running GPs then because Jack was running the team then. I just said, "Oh, good luck to you, same to you. What'll be, will be." And then that race started, but he was just right. He just had no form in the showdown at the back end, and he'll admit that. But bless him, he did a job there, didn't he? I mean, you got to look at it, and Brands Arch, English rider, final round, the beloved, he was on ground territory there. But that last 3 or 4 laps, we were just urging him on, and then Brooksy and Ellison getting involved, and I'm going, get the out. And at that point, I was more because Michael had far more pace than anyone. He could have won that race by 5 seconds easily. And I'm saying, Michael, go. You've got to do your team bit here. But he'd already made the deal for Honda, which I knew about. I'm thinking, you've got. I'm paying you well. You've got to do it. And we were like pitboarding Michael more than thinking, just get in front of Hopper. Get in front of Hopper and slow the job down. Because he had loads of pace, and whenever Tommy made a move and Hopper made a move, Michael made the move as well, and it was one by one. And like midway through the race, I'm thinking, right, I'm starting to go. I'm saying, what we're doing here? What's the permutation here?
I've blacked out.
And he just said, Michael's got to go. And we were just boarding Michael. We stopped boarding Tommy. We're boarding Mike. I thought, I'm not going to board Tommy for 2 laps to wake him up a bit here, because he'll be looking for his board, thinking, what's going on? I've got to make my own mind up a bit here, because he wasn't taking initiative on it. And then He probably was. That's what we were thinking anyway. But we were just boarding. Michael, go. You've got to go. Because get in front of Tommy, you had pace. You certainly had more pace than Hopper at that point. But he didn't. He played the wingman behind. Would he have got involved if he had to? I mean, Ellison could surely have nipped on the inside of Hopper on the very last corner when he ran wide, but he didn't. They stayed out of it. But look, we got the end result. And I can't really, to answer your question, I can't really remember the feelings. I just know when they went over the line and we're looking at the screen, it was flicking one way or the other. And then obviously it came up with Tommy. 6,000th of a second, and then that was it. Yeah, it was great.
Was that the first? That'll be in your first BSB championship, was it? Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So how all those years and all the money that all the effort that had went in.
I still want the money back.
Well, I mean, leading into that, after the Hydrex days, I mean, I remember I was sat with a couple of pals, and I think it was between Christmas and New Year, and the Hydrex deal had been done for that 11 season. We had Bike Animal, we had Rockstar Energy, we had Hydrex's title, and then I got a phone call out the blue. Hydrex had hit the wall, gone into financial difficulties, blah blah blah. I'm thinking, oh my god, I don't believe this. And this was kind of leading up to bringing Swan in. Swan were already working with Stuart Higgs on circuit sponsorship. I rang Stuart up and said, Stuart, I won't believe this. I said, Hydrex had hit the wall here, He went, oh no way. So look, let's have a think about it. And he came back and we did a little sweetener deal to bring Swan in, and that was the start of that period. And they were great sponsors, but they stepped into an established team for very little money, and we grew with them. There was kind of structured performance related deals. Stuart helped me manage that. That's when I started working really close with Stuart. And they must have got God knows how many podiums, God knows how many wins. Championship was really established.
They couldn't have asked for a better exciting race.
They won the championship with Tommy that year, and then the second year it was we brought we had Hutchie and Tommy, and Hutchie hurt himself. That was him out, and then I brought Noriyuki Haga over. So. And that was the final year.
I actually remember down at the North Yorkshire Road Racing Sports Club, you came there for a night and you brought Haga. And I remember him, he kept talking. He couldn't speak much English, but he was saying stuff about the money, and he kept going no riding World Superbike, so money, and he kept doing it and making everybody laugh. But I remember thinking, I bet you weren't laughing.
He had a good deal.
I bet. And the second year after winning the championship, Tommy had one more year in Superbikes and then walked away from the sport. It's sort of, you've sort of seen it with Nico Rosberg, where he kind of set out to win the Formula One, achieved it and walked away at the top. Why do you think Tommy did walk away after that second year?
I'm not sure. Getting him to sign the second year was reasonably okay. We did that deal. We ended up having we had a change of staff that year. I think we changed crew chiefs for Tommy. He rode the number one plate. He had a great pre-showdown, won a lot of races. Was clearly in the showdown, and then it didn't really. We had that incident going on the grid at Assen. We were late getting out the box. He went to the grid too quick and clipped the back of someone, but he snapped the footrest, but he didn't just snap the footrest, he snapped the boss off the frame. So it wasn't just a case of
that's some impact.
That was going to the grid for a race in the showdown at Assen.
And I can't remember what led up to that, but there was clearly his head was busy at that point. And it was a real shame to see him not come back, because I think he did deserve something more outside of the BSB, another stab at Worlds or something like that. But they were hard to come by then. There was already, budgets were tight everywhere, as they always are. And I still to my date don't really know why. We never had that conversation. It was quite quick. He made a decision. He had one or two options, but Kate had the first baby. Changes your mindset, that does. I was really KGM, Jeff Pillinger. He and I chatted along about it, and he said, "Look, I think he's going to call it a day," and that was it. He just made fair play to him. he's got a great little life for himself now, and he'll have made some money, and he'll bank some money. He's got 2 kids, got a good lovely family, he's still involved in the paddock. He had to go running the team, now knows how painful that is.
Text him.
And that's it. And that's it, you know. I mean, the amount of times, you know, when we needed a standing ride, I'd call him, say, come on, Tommy, get your legs back up. Now, that's it, I'm done. So, fair play.
Yeah, we are. So, what was interesting there, you're talking about like difficult times to step up and like move round. Looking at what we're coming into this season, both at Worlds, MotoGP, every level, how difficult is it to actually step up for now? You know, how hard is this sport to get into now? What's the difficulties that face here?
It's, as always, it's the last 2%, 3%. That's what makes the differences. And it's, you know, I made some bold statements when we left the championship. I mean, we'd already made our decision to leave it in the middle of 15 when the new bike came out. And it wasn't a quick bike, it was a very basic bike, but I had some. What made the difference then, I had 2 or 3 engineers from BMW who were just another level. You don't get them that often, and they came in and they gave Josh a bike that he could literally ride anywhere. And the most important thing, it worked at every circuit, and that's a big difference.
So did you take the engineers from BMW to the Yamaha BSB team, do you mean?
No, in 13, 14, we ran the old bike with Motec in BSB, and then for 15 we got Yamaha Europe direct support because it was a new bike. They weren't working in World Superbike. They had a lot of, I think they had budget to develop that bike with a view that would then come into World Superbike in 16, where we thought we would get that deal. So there was a lot of effort behind it. So I've got my now crew chief, Marcus Eschenbacher, who was a renowned engine builder, a tuner. He was working on the development side, and he basically built and worked with our guys to build a bike that was capable of winning, and he gave Josh a bike to win on.
And that was the red, the Milwaukee bike, yeah. Because it's very unusual. You see a bike that comes, like the first year of a bike is usually, there's a lot to learn, and you know, lots of
people are expecting it to fail in a way.
A lot of testing, but yeah, to win in the first year, and it was. I've just finished reading Shaky Burns' book, and he was talking about that end of the season. Josh won. Like his win rate was unbelievable. It was like he was just double. And Shaky actually said he doesn't understand, because up till this last year, all the years before and all the years after, he's never shown any kind of form like that.
And that I mean, I make my point, and I mentioned it earlier there, that it's that last 2 or 3% everywhere, you know. We upped our game everywhere, you know, because we started with Brock Parks, we had then a Kuba Smertz, a couple of races, but that bike was just, you know, it came out the box and it wasn't perfect. Don't forget we had all the debacle about Michael Dunlop joining us, then jumping ship at the beginning of the TT, which is unbelievably bad form, you know. And that bike, it was capable of winning. Josh was already winning on it by that point. But the real deal with that bike was that, you know what, right? We just kept it really straightforward, really simple, but we made it work at every circuit. And when it works at every circuit, you know, you get on it, you know, a couple of clicks here and there, it's going to work, you know.
Touching on the Michael Dunlop thing at the TT, so for those people that weren't aware, Michael was signed to race for all the internationals, like Northwest TT and stuff. And after getting to the TT, he did a few nights of practice, I think, and then left and went on another bike. Is it okay to talk about that? Is it legal?
Yeah. What he said is a load of crap, and I'll tell you the truth.
There we are. So like you say, it was a case of turned up, it was a full, this is it, everything was signed. It was the front cover of the TT programme, Michael Dunlop on board your Milwaukee Yamaha there. Yep. And it was a case of a couple of nights of practice went, and then you really fill us in what happened after that. It was a case of...
Well, we did a deal for... all 3 bikes and the Super Sport, but I mean, everyone knows that Marcus Eschenbacher, you know, is a big R6 guy. But he was a crew chief when Cal Crutchlow won all his championships in World Super Sport. You know, he's a well-renowned guy. He built our bikes when William Dunlop rode for me on the 600. So he still does them now as part of his small business. So we built the 600. The Super bike was brand new, but it had an inherent problem with it. It had this oil blowback problem with it. Wasn't major. We cured it. But he lost a bit of confidence with it, did Michael. We had the issue at the Northwest. We pulled out of before the second Superbike race at the Northwest because it was just breathing on the overrun. You know, some of them do. And it was all to do, we had to re-engineer a little bit. It was all to do with making a bigger oil catch tank that would catch the breather oil from it. But on the overrun, after a long straight, you would at the Northwest, long full straights, and boom, off the gas, you would just build. As soon as you crack the throttle again, it would
pressure,
bop, it would bop. And he was getting his head filled. I can't win on it. 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 And we were saying, you can win on it, Michael. At least you can have faith. You've got a 2-year deal here. Have faith on the first year. You'll be on the podium. You can win the 600 race, and it will be right for the second year. But anyway, you can still win the first year. So the rot had already set in at the Northwest. So we had it in our mind it's going to be problematic. And the key point here was that Yamaha were behind me and Milwaukee were behind me, and we spoke the same language. I had such a strong relationship with them, and I thought, well, I'm not going to take a kick in here. I'll make a decision that suits the team, and if it hurts you as well, you won't be taking us down with you. So it was a couple of nights at the TT. I'd flown Marcus in, Eschenbacher, who was working on the bikes. We'd overcome the problem. We made some catch tanks. They were running the super stock bike in their own colours.
Michael always seems to do that, doesn't he? Yeah.
We were happy to do that, and we were absolutely clear. You've got to keep the oil right on the bottom of the oil level. Don't fill it up the glass. It's got to stay at the very, very bottom. They filled the oil level full on. Loads of images that night going through, I think Glenvine, somewhere like that, off the gas or whatever, but the sun was shining up, smoke coming out the back again, and we just felt, it's wrong this. You went out on the Superbike, didn't have the same problem at all. Super engine, we built him, and he was unsettled. So I just grabbed the bull by the horns. I said, look, if you're not going to ride, I want to call it a day right now. Yeah. And if you don't call it a day like now, which is 9 o'clock after the second or third practice, I said, we call a day on it now or you carry on. I said, we're not messing around. I said, I've got sponsors and everything. I said, we do it. So I rang Paul Phillips. I said, look, probably going to have an issue here you need to deal with. I don't trust the situation. He's probably got BMWs lined up with Hawk guys. It was one of those decisions. So at 11 o'clock, I said, right, pull in the plug. That's it. If you're not going to ride the bike, you're not going to give it 100%. I said, we're out. And so packed the truck down, pulled it out. By dinner time, we would left the island. And that was it. He refused to ride the bike. He was giving all sorts of issues. It didn't go to court. I served a letter on him. He paid the price.
Yeah,
we wiped ourselves down, won the championship, left the paddock, and went to Wales. That was it.
There we are.
But you have returned to the TT plenty of times after that.
I came back with we've had
golf bikes and
no, that was well after that. I'm trying to think after the.
So what happened now? So before that, leading up to that, we'd had William. We had Connor Cummins, we had William, we had Hutchie. We looked after Hutchie while he was still injured and didn't quite get there. We never did a TT with Ian. So we've had a few riders through there, and then we did a year with the Gulf.
Beautiful bike. That was such an Dave O'Johnson. Let's get your opinion on Dave O'Johnson, because I think he's a fantastic creature of a human being.
He's just been married,
yeah, he's just got married, yeah.
So what's he like to work with, in your opinion?
Too laid back.
Too laid back, right?
Yeah, he's great. Honestly, he just, everyone can say a little bit, he's fast, so fast, so natural as well. He's a big lad as well, which doesn't help, but it helps around there.
Yes.
Helps around there. No, we liked him. We did a deal for that whole Gulf thing because we were looking at bringing them into World Superbike, and they nearly came in. Ended up not doing the deal, but we just said, look, do you want to do this? We'll show you what it looks like. The bike rolled out. On the back of that, Davo went to Le Mans, did a load of promo work over there and got paid for that, and ended up having a good... And we thought, it's going to roll on this. We're going to get this big deal for as title sponsors in Worlds. It didn't happen, sadly. But Dave was great to work with, yeah. And we just missed the podium. We got a fourth, I think.
God,
he had a DNF.
Does that seem to get... It's never last minute. There's so many moving parts, but from the world's point of view and the paddock's point of view, it seemed very last minute almost.
It was.
It was, wasn't it? So how last minute was last minute then?
We sold everything. We're running I'd overloaded the guys, which isn't a good thing to do. I mean, I just said, look, can we do this? Do you think we can do it, lads? We all sat around the table. It's going to be a long order, this. We've got a lot of World Superbikes. We're in with the Aprilia deal.
Sorry, another quick question. How many staff do you have at this point? When you're talking about overloading the staff? At that point, yeah.
We probably have a race weekend, including about 18 to 20.
Wow.
And then there's about 6 8 guys from the BMW side. So
They
about
are-
28, 30 of us staff on the weekend.
That's
It's a big old concern, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a
it
lot
is.
of people to manage.
They're full-time staff.
When you're thinking
Right.
of flights and accommodation and things, it's a huge headache.
Yeah, there's a lot of learning with that as well. You know,
Oh, God,
to be honest with you do it for 5 minutes. You think, oh God, it's easier than I thought. Freight and so well like that. That's the big thing. But you always have this mental block. How do you get all this gear around the world? But it is easier than you think when it's all set up.
All about rhythm. So
Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you, and I can't remember where we were there.
Dave
Dave
Johnson.
Johnson, yes, that was it. Yeah.
No, we ended up coming out the back of that, and he got the Honda deal, but we couldn't get the deal going with. We couldn't get the deal with Gulf to come back into Worlds, which was what we're trying to achieve. But this is this whole BMW story that kind of gathered momentum and never went away after we started World Superbike. You know.
So was that because the Gulf was on the BMW. So
Yeah.
at what point did you go from? By the way, I'm very biased. I love the look of that Aprilia.
Yeah.
I know it must have been a difficult bike to work on. Italians are, but it's a fantastic looking bike. So specifically, why and how did the BMW relationship start? You know, what day, at what point?
So I come back to we won the championship with Josh in 15. Yamaha were very clear on coming back to World Superbike. We were ready to win that year championship. I'd done a deal with Milwaukee already for 3 years in World Superbike. I had everything in my hand. You know, we'd won a British championship. We'd done a job. Yamaha should have been happy with that.
Yeah.
Won 2 championships and God knows how many races. We had a deal with 3 years to go to World Superbike. I had a deal with the organisers for my grid slot. So we were going, I'm thinking, yeah, Yamaha will come with us. And then at the 11th hour, they went with Crescent, which didn't impress everybody. But in hindsight, it was the right decision for them. And I respect that. And I still do today, because I think if it was between myself and Paul, Paul had far more experience than us, MotoGP experience, many years in World Superbike. So for me, it was a logical choice. I think many others around me didn't feel that, but that was more personal. But as a business decision, which you got to look at, it was the right choice for Yamaha to make. But it certainly left us with our proverbially in our hand. So with that situation, we're thinking, what do we do now? I've got the sponsor, I've got the riders, I don't have a manufacturer. There was no factory deals to be had. So we effectively went year one with BMW. It was like a semi-privateer, semi-factory thing. So they provided engineers and engines and electronics. Everything else we had to provide, because Altea had that deal at that point. So we left BSB. Thought, now we've done it. You know, we've done what we want here now. We need to change, and everyone was on board for it.
And the thinking behind going from BSB to World Superbikes, was that something that you'd always sort of planned from day one, or did you always sort of dream of eventually going to World Superbikes, or was it just a thing that sort of developed naturally?
No, we knew, and we'd missed the boat with MotoGP. I mean, Birdie did it and went and got then the CRT side of things, but things were evolving quickly there. World Superbike, Gregorio had come to a number of events and said, look, we want you in the paddock, we'll make it work for you. We need strong teams. You'll be surprised. After the top factory teams on the World Superbike grid, the quality in BSB matches everything that's there. So it was clear we were at a good level. So everything was lined up really, and most importantly, the sponsor. They wanted to go. They started a big marketing thing. We'd done a lot of winning for those, and it worked well for them. Their market share was going through the roof at that point. So for them, it was a good choice. So,
in terms of giving a tangible benefit to sponsors, one thing that I remember seeing it was years ago at Open Park, and I thought that's such a clever way of sort of right next to the cafe, the Milwaukee tent had a thing set up with using Milwaukee tools. You had to change your wheel as quickly as possible with a big scoreboard, and all weekend there was a queue there. Everyone could see it using Milwaukee tools.
We did that all over the world for 3 years with them.
And you just think that's, in terms of advertising, you can really see how that's selling product.
For those guys, I mean, look, it was clear after the first year World Superbike wasn't really working for the BMW, for the Milwaukee guys. Domestically, it was off the scale, and probably, to win as many races as we did, and then to win the championship, to come back in BSB, they had to come and to at least match that. So for them, it was a case of, we don't want to come back with second best. So, I now know they've done a deal in BSB with Stewart to do some track and championship support. But for us, we had that at every race. We had our Arctics, of which there was 4, and we had what they call Big Red, which is the the Milwaukee when with the sides all open up, you go on. If you want to get a jigsaw or a drill or a planing machine, there was blocks of timber there. You're making a mess. When it was all quiet during the middle of the day, you'd hear everyone going, cutting and smashing things up and drilling.
You're in the middle of a debrief call. We need a win.
Yeah. And that exactly was what Milwaukee were good at, and capturing capturing information and data from people walking footfall was unbelievable for them.
In terms of the demographic of bike racing fans as well, it's very much people. Like you tend to see people on building sites like bikes.
Mad, isn't it? That's where it's from, and that was their demographic. It really was that audience worked for them.
Now, one thing just before we move on to the World Superbike, one thing that I think gets overlooked a lot is so obviously he'd signed Ian Hutchinson and he had that horrendous leg injury and was out for such a long time. Now, after I think it was a year and a half of being out, and you seen the state, it was a miracle that he could walk again pretty much after what he went through. And then pretty much the first time that he came back to ride for you was over at Macau.
Yes.
And after about an 18-month gap, went out and was leading half the race, and you just think,
he won it?
No, the first year back, I think he finished second. I think,
he won it.
No, he won
his first year.
Did he? No. He off the bike, hopped on the Milwaukee MR, and he just went.
Even more impressive than I thought he was second.
Tommy had won the championship. I think
he's made 12. Well.
Yeah, he'd. We'd done a couple of tests, and that bike was mint. It was clearly mint. And we took it over there. I forget which year it was, but anyway, he'd got on that bike. He'd been out. He'd had a re-op. He'd had gone in for another operation for remedial work, so he was out again. We'd signed him to run the season, and then he injured himself at the XL Bike Show.
Yeah,
is that what happened? I think that's what happened.
The Boasties thing.
Yeah.
Is that where he did his leg again?
Rebroke his leg.
Yeah, he rang me. I'm in the back of a car, Sean. I'm heading up to see Dr. Yuslav or whoever it was. He said, my leg snapped again. I went, oh, no way. I'd given him the deal against a bit, Tommy was on the bike and I got him on the bike, and it was a bit of I've got Tommy, I'm happy with that. So I gave Ian the ride, and then he broke his leg. I was like, oh, no way. Anyway, we brought Hager on. So I think it was the end of that period, the re-break period of the final year with Hager and Tommy, that we started with Milwaukee. But we did the Milwaukee race at Macau, and it was after all that year being out again that he got on the bike and won. And that was emotional. That was
unbelievable.
And then following that, following Hutch's career, he went back to the TT and Macau, and he's just rebuilt himself.
And a lot of in this sport, a lot of the time the riders always get the credit, and everyone sort of is the fans tend to associate themselves very much with the rider. But in terms of a team boss to stick with a rider throughout all that time, and then for what was it, nearly 2 years, and to stick with them and then give them an opportunity to come back.
Yeah, it was
a lot of people.
He felt the right thing to do.
Not all heroes wear capes, Chris.
What I mean is, though, a lot of people don't credit things like that, and it's a lot of behind the scenes. But it's a lot of people in that position after an injury would replace and move on type of thing.
Yeah, and I mean Ian, he's a comeback kid, isn't he? He keeps doing it, and I mean, I know he's signed. He's got a deal, hasn't he, for this year? I don't know. Has that been announced yet?
It hasn't.
But if you want to announce it now, that's fantastic.
I do actually know where it's going, but I'm not announcing.
Yeah, I'm the same. So I know he's had some options. I mean, we did that. We put that together for him last year at arm's length. It was my bike, and we put it together, built it for him, and the guys at Richard Arundel at
44 Edwards.
Edwards 44 Vodka put it all together and looked after it. So it was a good thing for him. So I think he stayed with them and gone somewhere. That's all we can say.
So yet again, I feel like we should just say thank you for taking the time out of an incredibly busy schedule. So you run your own team and you look after other riders as well. So you're obviously helping out Hutchie and Davo. And now, are you helping out Davey Todd as well? Do you manage him as well?
No, I just I helped him. I helped him that first year when he was with Stefan Kuhn on the BMWs.
Yes.
Just a bit more, just
local lad.
Yeah, just a little bit. And then I didn't need to after that, really. Got the Honda thing, and that was it. I don't know what he's doing now. But to be honest with you, I've got to focus on what I'm focusing on. I've got conditions with this deal with BMW. It's huge. It's a huge deal as well. It's a new 4-year agreement. we're in difficult times, Brexit and COVID and what have you. So it's, I need to focus on that. I contractually, there's not a lot more I can really do. I can help people at arm's length.
Oh no, but you seem to do. You seem like just from that little list there, help this and help that, and so fair play to you, busy man.
Touching upon the Brexit thing, obviously, as someone that's transporting bike goods all around the world, it's been a big thing recently about carnage. We discussed it on the last podcast, and you're one of the perfect people to speak to, because from the racing industry, there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast, watch the podcast, that say maybe do European track days, and the kind of it's a proper point of interest at the moment. You mentioned earlier that it's logistically, you said it's not as tough as what people think. But
let's say this: whatever I say now at 11:46 on Sunday the 29th might not be what I'm saying in June. But I did a thing with Matt Oxley, and Paul and myself were speaking to Matt about a piece he was doing, and it's got the potential to cause real issues. I mean, you can imagine a UK team not making one of the races at a World Superbike Championship because we're stuck at a border and everyone's emptied our trucks there all over the forecourt to go through everything. It's got to be done quite thoroughly.
Surely that's not a realistic possibility, though.
It is. It's happened in the past. It's happened to us in the past, in years gone by when I race, and you hear stories. You're going into Switzerland to get over here. They'll empty your truck if they're not in the right mood and go through everything. So you've got to be careful. You've got to be respect it as well. That's the main thing.
Yeah, and in terms of the flyaways, I'm saying when you're in Europe, you think everything's, for example, what's the furthest you go? Is it Australia?
Yeah, that side, and then Argentina the other way. Yeah.
And is it a case of, is it all on ships and?
No, everything's air freighted. So we already do a lot of Carn Air work anyway, because obviously, for all those flyways, we've got to arrange that side of it. So the freight side of it is to come back to your question about Brexit and borders and all this Carn Air situation, it's manageable, but it's time consuming and costly. There's no doubt about that. It is another spanner in the works that we need to manage. So another hurdle. However, it's how we approach that. We clearly have got to prepare for the worst. And more often than enough, it's not going to be the worst. It'll just get back to normal. So we've already sent vehicles into vans and whatever into Germany to collect parts already. So we've already tasted the system. System. We've sent equipment over there under Carn Air as we've have to do, and it's gone okay. There's no issues with it, but there's clearly a paper trail you've got to go through. I think I won't say hysteria, but the general public perception is that it's going to cost you a fortune. It is going to cost money. There's no doubt about that. Will it change? I'm almost certain it will change in the future. So there'll be a change to the visa ruling on musicians and sports people and supporting sports people and supporting musicians that will affect that whole situation where the 90-day visa day travel in will be amended. Mm-hmm. However, the Carn Air thing isn't going to go away ever. That's where there's now to stay.
Is that someone starting the helicopter?
Well, you're getting invaded here.
You're on this is the route to the North Yorkshire Moors, and it's one route they can get up, and if they can get over the massive turnstile at the top, they'll do all right.
It's like an army of enduro bikes going out for a ride out there.
Sounds like there was a lot there, was there? No, so the Carn Air situation is quite straightforward. It's the insuring of the goods. Mm-hmm. So we'll have 4 trucks, 2 hospitality, and 2 race trailers. One of those race trailers more an office trailer with supporting equipment, and then one carries all the bikes and all the equipment. So that Carn Air is going to be like War and Peace. Mm-hmm. So we've literally got to ensure that in case we decide we don't bring it back, and then someone's getting the duty for that. And that's the aspect that's causing this issue.
Right.
Do you choose is a Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah.
And I'm under the impression there's loads in the country, and you just pick like one that works for you, type of thing.
Well, you pick
sort of shop around.
The easiest one to pick is the one where you can go in and out and pick your documents up, because you've got to do it physically.
Right.
You can't have any. What I understand, an electronic version. You've got to have a hard copy. So as an example, we're going to Jerez, of which means we've got to go through Calais to Jerez to Barcelona, back to the UK. back into Europe again and do all of the rounds in all of the countries, back to the UK around the World Superbike and back again. So it's got to have a sheet for every entry and exit point into the country, which isn't rocket science. You just lay it all out and look at where you're going to go. The hard part is you've got to make sure everything that's in that truck is in that truck.
Yes.
And if it isn't in that truck, it's not a problem. It's not in there. But if it is in the truck and it's not on your car there,
you're in trouble.
You've got issues to deal with, and that's the problem
that you want to get away from. Yeah.
There'll be another part of the staff joining the team soon. We
already have. So
right,
that's
really?
Covered off, yeah.
I don't blame you.
Now, going to the BMW thing, you've been with BMW on for a little bit, then off, and then back on now. And did you say 4-year deal? They've recently updated, so went from Gen 3 to Gen 4 a few years ago, and which seemed to be a good this year. Sorry, which seemed to be a good step forward. And that's the bike that I raced in 2020.
I was waiting for you to drop that in there.
Yeah. Just brought the new is it the M1?
The M model bike, yeah.
So is there some exciting things in the pipeline with the bike?
Yeah. So just to go back, we joined them in 2016 as a private team, and we had Josh Brooks and Carol Abrahams, and then we ended up at that point with 2 engineers from BMW, the head engineer that would work with us as our electronic guys. One was a guy called Peter Lausch, and then there was a guy called Mark Bongers who worked with Josh as his engineer, and that's how I started working with them. The Aprilia deal came knocking. We did that for all the right reasons. Did 2 years of that and realised it was going to come to a close, so we stepped away. Probably the middle of the year that we did the Gulf thing with Devo, we'd already entered negotiation with them because they wanted to make an official, none of this customer support deal thing anymore.
Yeah.
They want to have an official team. Mark had been promoted as head of motorsport because Bertie Hauser retired. Mark then went from being a friend and engineer to being the head guy, and we kept that talk going, and we did our presentation to the new president, and then got the deal. So that was happened in the middle of that year where we ran Devo. And then obviously at that point it was a case of, look, we want you to focus on World Superbike. If you're going to do anything this non-World Superbike stuff, you need to do it at arm's length and don't have your name all over it, because we want you to focus on this alone, which is understandable. So we entered the first year at the end of 18 with the then new bike, first full season of 19 with Reiterberger and Tom, and then through 19 and 20 the bike kind of evolved, but we wasn't the bike we'd hoped it was going to be. We couldn't get that next kick on, hence there was a pretty high level decision at that point that the biggest, most important brand within the BMW group is the M brand, but they've always used HP on bikes, and this incoming president just turned around and said, I don't understand this. I'm taking all of that away. We're now going to call it the M bike, and it will be a stand level above everything else, and hence we are bringing the M bike out, which you'll find is a level above everything else.
I was just about to ask, is there really that much of a change for the racing side of it? It looks brilliant. I'm a fan of the wings, mate.
Yeah, the man on the street will jump on a bike, and it's probably the best-selling bike, a super bike anywhere. It'll be even bigger, but it's got a price tag to go with it, I'm sure. I know. So on track, it's got titanium pistons. It's got titanium rods. It's got matched forged pistons, bigger, higher rev range, different cam lifts on it. Still got the split throttle bodies, a few ergonomic changes to the chassis stiffening. It's got the wings on it. It's an all-around, what we did in the first year with it was you're on about a startup bike with the time we had. We only had 4 months to get ready for the first race. It was phenomenal what Tom did on that bike. COVID hurt us the last year in 20, so we did an awful lot very quickly with it, but we also realised we need to do something bigger and quicker, which is why when we wheel these bikes out, you'll look at them and go, yeah, there's a change there, there's a change there, there's a change there.
Really, that much?
Yeah, there will
fantastic.
be. Yeah.
For quite a while, there's Tom's qualifying has been stronger than his race. Sometimes you'll see him like a front row or pole position, but it seems to be when he's in a sort of group or speaking historically, on the straights, the bike hasn't been as fast in a straight line.
It's not fast enough.
But that seems to be the problem. Chassis wise and cornering wise, it seems to be very competitive.
It looks like that. The chassis isn't and wasn't as good as it should have been, because early race pace we were quick, but we wouldn't have any tyre life. So we worked very much on the tyre life with the chassis. So the chassis work has changed dramatically over the course of winter, and certainly back end of last year. We would only use maybe half to maybe 2/3 of the rubber of the tyre in a race, and not using all of it. So we weigh our tyres before and weigh them after to make sure we're using all that tyre.
Right.
We don't want to leave too much meat on the bone at the end of a race because everyone else is using all of it. So we realise we're not getting the full use of that tyre, and there's a reason why that. So that's something we've worked a lot on. The braking issue we've had with the bike isn't the brakes, it's a combination of not enough of something from the engine helping the brake, which come from a lot of something else inside of it. So again, that's evolved with the new bike and with what we're running. So it's a combination, isn't it? It's not just all one bit.
Like referring back to what you were saying earlier in the interview, it's that percentage, isn't it? It's just finding that little 3-4%, and it sounds like this BM's going to be it. Like it's
we've certainly we made Mark and I sat. I think we were sat in Australia at the first round, and we were bitterly disappointed. We got pole position with Tom in that 12 months previous to that. It was our first ever race. We were back at Australia in round 1. Tom got pole position and just led the race and slipped back to normally like the 5th, 6th, and we were just gutted about that. And here we are, second year with the bike, and disappointed. Really disappointed. I mean, me and Mark were in tatters. What we got to do is, we got to do more. There's more to come, and we knew we had more engine evolution to follow, which we'd been working on. We didn't need it in Australia because it's not that type of circuit there, but for sure we needed it in Aragon, which would have been the 3rd round and the first in Europe. So there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, but then COVID kicked in, didn't it? So all of a sudden the season's in tatters. But we made a decision at that point. I needed to go out and find that rider to complement the situation. I was also adamant that we needed to prepare budget to support a satellite team because we couldn't do all this on our own. We're putting too much pressure on ourselves. We're overworking the team. As many as guys that we got in the box, we were bringing too many parts to the events. We were bringing too many parts to test at the events. And it was just not conducive to winning. Those guys should have been going down on FP1 the first session with a bike that was ready to race. It's this having a bike that transfers circuit to circuit. So, we made a decision at that point. We needed a satellite team, so we started brokering teams for that. And there wasn't many that could have done that. We almost did a deal with the Evan Brothers team to bring Locatelli on board and a satellite team, which we would have supported. That didn't happen. But it quickly transpired that we could do a deal with Michael Galinski, which was a really strong team anyway in IDM, a bit like we were then in our day.
Yeah.
And they had a German rider who happens to be an ex-GP rider who happens to have done a few wildcards that year and showed that he's no duck egg, So that was a quick deal, which really, they've been a pleasure to work with so far. And I wanted to kind of continue because I know how good Eugene, his feedback was, and there was an opportunity there with Andrea Quadranti to run him, and then they've done a lot of years with the MV. So we've started on that project now, and it's resourced us to the point of
So have you got your factory team with you with Tom and Mikey, and then two individual satellite teams with one rider each?
Correct. Yeah.
And is the idea
you like work, don't you?
We're not running those, fortunately.
Is the idea that you can sort of give them parts and things to if you want to go different directions, you can kind of give them different things.
That's exactly what we'll do. Yeah.
Right. And
so the starting point we have now is, in just down the road from here, all their bikes are being built now. So there'll be various levels of release of information. So if we've got new swing arms, they will then get them after the first test, and the first engines we'll validate those and find a direction. They will get them for the second one. Or if we decide we don't want to test those engines, Jonas can test them or Eugene can test them. But things not just that. It's you can have many hardware parts, but you can have twice as many electronic parts, as in electronic changes internally, and it's the evaluation of that takes a lot of the time.
I'm really excited to see Mikey come across. I know he's been with Yamaha for a long time now, and I think he was ready for a change, and I think it's a good choice of rider for you as well. Do you see the BMW challenging the Kawasaki and Ducati in World Superbikes this year?
I'm a sucker for making bold statements, and I've done them in the past. And I always fall on my own sword, so I'm going to be careful. When we went with Brooksy, we said, "Yeah, we'll be on the podium this year," and then we was like, "Wow, the level is just so high." And many a time we've done a BSB race, or done a World Superbike race at Donington, and there's a wildcard rider come in and he's nicked a 9th or a 10th. The gap from that to the front is just
phenomenal.
It is. So to answer your question, we've got the right ingredients. We've made a lot of changes internally. We brought new staff on board. We've increased our staff. We brought the quality on. We brought 2 satellite teams on. 4 riders on the grid. The bike is a big step forward, and Tom's fast anyway. So to bring Michael on board is being the right capture for us, because clearly there wasn't that many people out of contract at the end of this year gone.
Yeah.
So it's not like we have the free rein and an open check, but we can sign everybody. There's only 2 or 3 that are viable anyway, and Michael was clearly one of those. So to get him on board with a big scalp. So for us, it's and Paul knows how good he is. He's had him for years under his belt. I'm not going to make predictions, but we will be competitive.
Yeah,
we'll be competitive.
I was just going to say the old hospitality unit's just made its way down to BSB now, and it's now the big.
I bet that's got some stories, has it?
The OMG, beautiful looking thing, with the shiny door, massive infrastructure. Have you got something similar yourself now? Have you upgraded, or have you went for?
Yeah, we have. Yeah,
it's got a Winnebago.
What's the new one look like?
Trek, yeah.
Is a Trek.
Yeah.
Now, obviously for BSB teams, they can go to the World Superbike paddock, see what the next level is, and then sort of inherit the old World Superbike one. Do you go to like Formula One and there? So
well, you laugh. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So that's come from F1, this unit.
Right.
So it's they call it the Cube.
Right.
So it's 2 big trailers that double deck slip up and all the sides open out. Yeah, it'll be nice when it's ready to. Well, it's actually it's ready now, really. So
really looking forward to seeing that.
Well, it's an important part. A lot of stuff I've done over the years, and I've always made sure that part is well covered off, because trust me, the people on that side of the fence, they want to be in there. You can have a can of beer or a Coke or whatever you're doing. You walk down that thoroughfare at Donington Park. Do you want to go in the big burger grill there, or do you want to go in that flash hospitality there? You want to be in there, and that's something that stands out for them guys.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, a bit special. Question for you about the different manufacturers. So BMW, the Germans with the BMW. You've worked with the Italians at Aprilia. You've worked with the Japanese with Honda and Yamaha. Yeah. Is there any like standout differences in the way they work in terms of structure?
I mean, if I'm perfectly honest with you, I did enjoy my time with the staff with Aprilia. It's the politics behind it was difficult for us to work with. They put a level of effort into it at that time, but there was just a different agenda behind the scenes. That bike was very old. It was probably 8-year-old chassis on that thing.
Right.
So we dragged it around and did a job on it to get a couple of wins and some podiums and some pole positions was a good job. What I like about working with BMW, and I'm not going to say the Germans, it's disrespectful to say that, is that they are very British in the way they do things. We're going to do that, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
If that's what we need to do, that's what we're going to do. If that doesn't work, we're going to change that. There's no dancing around it, and that's something I've worked well with Mark.
Very like matter of fact. I've got a good little story for this. Do you know Peter from Alpha? He came over at one of the tests that we had this year, and he was plugged into my bike, and we were doing something, and a friend of ours came over, and there was a red light flashing on the dash, and Peter was saying that's for your fuel, and we never knew that this was like a fuel thing. And the guy I was with said, "Oh, is that fuel?" He said, the other day I was on a track day, and the red flags came out, and when the red flags came out, the red light started flashing." And Peter just with a totally straight face said, so you think the marshals are connected to the dash? And he went, "Yeah, other." And Peter just went, "No." In this like so matter of fact, no emotion, whatever. And my mechanic Piggy looked up at Peter and went, "How the f- did we win the war?"
We didn't win the war; they lost it. That's it, didn't it? Yeah.
But it was just
look. I mean, there's a load of guys in that team there. You know, we've got Sander Donkers is our electronic guy. He's Dutch. Mark Bongers himself is Dutch. Obviously, the engineering side is Berlin with the engines and Munich as well. So there's a good cross mix there. Our development guy is Valerio Vitelli. He's Italian, so we got a good cross mix of everyone. So, but it comes from the top, doesn't it? You know, and I work with Mark Bongers. He's kind of my go-to person, and I am his in the team, and it's a straight relationship, you know. And he reports to Dr. Marcus Schramm, who is the head guy, and he's the one that's behind it all. And you know, we have to deliver. There's a lot of pressure on us to get results, and we can't. We had a lot of a perfect example of where we had issues last year. We had a lot of small, 50 pence components that broke, or some really little silly little things that you just can't do anymore. You know, we've changed the entire bike around. To replace the entire loom with a new 2D loom end to end that's been engineered. So Ian Lord, Chunky Lord, and Andy Carroll and Valerio have completely redesigned that, and it should be bulletproof. But that's the level we've gone to redo the bike, to get it to the level we need to get it at,
Like you say, all the ingredients there to make it work. And again, so Chris is getting his phone out. We've got is this for the patrons by any chance? We've got patrons who support us to get us here and everything like that, and loads of daft questions and serious questions. But I want to get one of my daft questions in. What has been your scariest moment in racing? So what I'm referring to is I saw one of your lovely Hydrex Hondas at the Northwest with Guy Martin slapping his arse off the curb, and you just think that must have just... Wow.
It's a funny one, isn't it? The scariest ones all come from the TT because it's so eerie. When a red flag comes out and you're watching the timings, it's when your rider doesn't go through a strike that time marker. That is one of the worst ones for me. Eugene at Imola, can you remember that one where Alex came through and clipped his brake hose, and then he went down at Imola and the bike went up in a ball of flames and Eugene was underneath it all? Mm-hmm. That was one of them. That was a really nasty one. Now it's a good one on YouTube, that one.
We'll have to get that fired into there, definitely.
Generally, you've got to be positive. I think of the good times, not the bad ones.
Of course,
Yeah.
What's your favourite year? Not results wise, but what's been your best year in terms of just ever?
I mean, in your life.
Your best year in terms of just really happy team. You had some real laughs and enjoyed what you did.
I haven't had one since Worlds. I can tell you that it's been a struggle. I enjoyed working with Josh and James that year when I brought Josh Waters over. That was a year. Didn't do an awful lot. I really enjoyed what stands out that year with Kieran and Steve Plater. That was a good year.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot about 11 and 15, the winning years. I enjoyed, we enjoyed the winning, but I don't want to sound blasé. When you start winning, you expect to win, so you add pressure to yourself that. And not only that, your sponsors expect you to win, so that pressure comes with it, So yeah, for sure, those years worked with Josh and James were laid back. It was probably too laid back to win championships, but we were making our way then. Yeah, enjoyed it. Yeah.
Do you ever, just touching on that, the fact that you've never really enjoyed since you went to World Superbikes, maybe for the pressure or whatever logistics. Do you ever regret moving to World Superbikes?
No, not at all. No, definitely not. When I say I haven't enjoyed it, we've not reached the target levels we want.
If you do something to win, if you're not winning, the struggles are great.
They are. I mean, it doesn't take long to pick you up. I mean, there's that. When you finish on a Sunday night with a decent result, it picks you up for that long trip back, and you could have a bad one. It could be in America. You've got to fly it back on a 12-hour flight, and it's just like, oh God, what a pain that's been. But it's made me respect the competition so much more. And you look to the likes of Tom that's won a championship, Jonathan that's won a championship, those guys. Not only that, the teams that have won them as well, you just know the struggles that they've been through. And it's damn hard, I mean, I feel a bit like, I speak to Paul a reasonable amount now, just on various, certainly recently on the on the Brexit issues and the Carney issues, and Paul's been in it for many, many years, and he run his dealership behind it all. So the whole two-wheel deal at the moment is hard work. People are not spending money, are they?
Times we're in.
And superbike racing is a second thought to most, but for us it's our frontline business, so we've got to make it work. It's tough, really tough.
Right, my other next tough question before Chrissy gets on the patrons, right? Everyone gets sacked. The book is open. I'm talking any rider in the world. Which scalp would you want?
Today?
I'm going to upset your current riders here, but your dream scalp.
I just look at Morbidelli and I just think, he's the real deal for me.
Do you follow MotoGP a lot still?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I like him. I'm glad that the likes of Rabat's come over, because I think he'll be tasty this year, definitely on a well sorted bike as well. Who else has come over? Scott's come over and obviously liven things up. To do what he's done has been fantastic.
Yeah. Rinaldi into the factory team.
Yeah. We tried to get Scott. We nearly had him in to join us last year, which was a shame. At the last minute, it didn't happen. But you don't realise how good those lads are, but they've had a different upbringing, haven't they? They've done all them years in Italy from 14, 15, and that's the one thing with BSB. When you're in BSB, you only think there's BSB. It's just wrapped around you, and I'm pleased that there's a lot more. Certainly Stuart respects his open. I think he's got a big, wider view on what's going to make BSB better, and we just need another Cal, don't we? We've got Jake coming through now, who's like the shining light, really, but if he doesn't succeed, who's the next one? I don't know. I can't see one at the moment.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I think people are kind of looking at Rory Skinner as that possible next. We'll have to see how he gets on, and I think a lot of people were hoping Rory went the sort of Moto2 route or possibly World Supersport.
Just take that nice big jump.
But in terms of that age category sort of coming up,
well, you've got Andy Reid, not Andy Irwin.
Yeah,
he's a young one. He's done a little bit.
Andy's more like sort of my age, like 25-ish.
Is he really? I thought he was a bit younger than that.
A bit older. Right. And I guess Kyle Ryde's a little bit younger. We'll have to see how he gets on in the superbikes this year.
But he's been there though, hasn't he? He's had a lot of years.
He's had a Supersport, wasn't it? Yeah, Supersport. So he's had a taste for that environment.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Every progression you make. You've got Lucas Mahias who's going to come over now at the Puccetti team, and he's been good on Supersport for years. But you'll see next year how hard that jump is. He's led and won World Supersport races for many years.
Here's one for you. How do you think Kyle Smith will do in British Supersport? Obviously coming on the Triumph. He's British on his passport, but he's actually only been to Yorkshire. I think he's only been about 2 weeks in the UK, and I think he's been to Donington like twice. I think.
What's the deal there then? They've got the Triumph. I understand he's got the Triumph.
Bookmaster's running I think it's Dynavolt Triumph. It's like the official 765 because they're opening the rules up.
Well, the bike's going to be a step up, isn't it? Probably over the straight four. So that's a clear advantage, isn't it? The good stuff rises to the top, doesn't it? So. I'm struggling with that Supersport class at the level of competition. It's been a bit flat, hasn't it, for a while? With Jack and Alistair kind of led it for quite a while, and then it needs that resurgence. So you got Rory Skinner's moved to Superbike now, I understand.
Yes,
yeah. So who's the headlines in the Supersport?
Supersport will
Bradley Perry's stepped up. You've got Jack Kennedy returned back on the ZX6.
Right. Okay. He's back.
He's coming back to that, so that'll spice it.
Young Irish lad, Rhys Irwin, stepping up on the Appleyard. Appleyards they've won it the last 4 years. Those two seats are, everyone's got their eyes on. The likes of Ben Curry. We're always going to miss a couple of people who'll be listening.
I know, but
you are right though. It has. I think it's been a little bit sort of flat. Going back maybe 5-6 years when you were in the paddock and you had there was a lot of top Triumph teams. Tag had a team. Smiths had a team.
Every main Superbike team had a 600 team as well.
Yeah,
they had a rider in it.
Relentless Gear Link were a big thing, and that year, do you know when Seeley versus Ben Wilson?
Yes.
If you went down pit lane that year, every single Superbike team were like around glued to the TV.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah,
you need those rivalries.
Well, there's the feeder classes out there, and I think that's important. I think, and I think what's happened there is that Stuart and the rules have made Superbike so affordable. So teams are looking at it, thinking, "Well, why should I run Supersport when I can actually run Superbike?" Mm-hmm. And to sell that to sponsors is a big sell.
Premier class, isn't it? Of the
British, it is. You know what I mean? The cost to run British Supersport can't be far away from Superbike now. You've got the extra races on a Saturday now, so you've got the tyre costs are going to be more or less parallel. So I think that's something that's affected that, but it's also been to the advantage of Superbike, but to the disadvantage of Supersport, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, interesting concept.
Well,
no, I've got one more daft question. Are we going to see you, not daft, it's serious to me, are we going to see you back in the roads in the future? You've got a lot on your plate, I'm fully aware of that, but
yeah, look, I wanted to get involved. Like I say,
I'm available. Just throwing that out, man. Just throwing that
no, we want to do something. We want to.
I'm
not thinking of going anywhere.
Out, be all right there.
I'm not thinking of going anywhere anytime
Good
soon.
man.
So yeah, I'd like to do something. And to be honest with you, we've had so many seconds and never any wins. It's been we never even won the Northwest. We won the Ulster a few times, but never the Northwest or the TT. So yeah, I'm going to do something along them lines.
Good man. That's great to hear. A lot of fans happy there.
BMW's been real strong over at the TT, especially for the last 6 years or whatever, and especially with this new bike coming out as well. You'd think it would be pretty cool. About wrapped up. When's your first test?
So Sunday today we go away. We're on track 22nd, 23rd, 24th of March in Jerez. That's the first test, and then we drive from there straight to Montmeló, Barcelona. 2 days there, then we come back for 3 weeks. I've now moved out. Obviously, the first round's gone, been moved to the summer, Assen, because the crowds. The second round is probably going to move as well. So the first real round is Aragon, 23rd of May. So that's opened a big gap. We have a test ban or test restriction on the number of days we can use now. So we'll use probably 2, then 4 days on the first session out there. So with the 3 days at Jerez, we'll use 2 days of those, 2 days at Barcelona. We'll come back. We've got 2 days in Aragon, 4th, 5th of May. We're looking at another 2 days in Portugal and then first race. So it's all coming thick and fast now.
Looking forward to it.
We'll let you get out in the old chopper. Have you been a pilot a while?
A few years. Yeah. Just got on that stage in my life. I'm trying to wind a few things back and enjoy it.
Do you know the excitement of racing bikes years ago? Do you get a similar sort of feeling?
Yeah, you do. That's where you do it. That's what. Yeah, I enjoy that part. Yeah.
Oh,
good man. But well, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show. Absolutely loved it. I'm looking forward to seeing you back in the roads one day.
In terms of social media, merchandise, that type of thing. Do you sell that on a website or?
Yeah, we run our own website. It's BMW-Motorrad World SBK.co.uk.
People can get all merchandise in it.
Yeah, it's all coming out. We've done a new range coming out soon, so it's all looking good. It's an with all the rubbish that's going on outside at the moment, I think everyone needs the paddocks to open up and the race season to start. It's a shame the roads got cancelled so early this year, but it's understandable that.
Yes.
But we just need to get on track and get the TVs, get racing on TV.
Excellent.
And get the sun out, don't we?
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Big thanks to our patrons. Big thanks to our sponsor, Colchester Kawasaki, and we'll catch up sometime soon. Thanks,
Great
Shaun.
stuff. Cheers, guys. Cheers now.
Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.